everybody, the Sneaky Snake here for Brothers in Arms World of Warships. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the upcoming German dreadnoughts and battleships, yes, that will be being implemented into the game at a later date. However, Wargaming does say that it will be rather soon. My guess is 0.5.9 or maybe 0.6, certainly within the coming month. So, Wargaming's website today, on one of their news pieces, gave us this picture. Here are the Tier 3 through the Tier 7 battleships, and there are the names and the pictures of the ships within. That is quite a formidable lineup. There are quite a few very historical and very popular ships in there, and there's a couple of them at the end tier that are based off of paper designs, but nonetheless will be frightening to see here on the battlefield. So I'm basically just going to give a little speculation video here. I'm going to talk a little bit about each of the ships that will be upcoming into the game and how I think that they'll play. Now, this is by no means all facts. Again, this is just a speculation video, but some of the facts in here that I'm going to be giving you are true to exactly how these ships were in real life, at least the ones that existed. The video that you see in the background here is me and my buddy Puddin. We're divisioned up in our mighty Tirpitzes, and we're playing some domination on the map Trap. Anyway, let's talk about the new battleships that will be upcoming into the game for the Germans. So, Tier 3, we have the Nassau class battleship. These were a group of 4 German dreadnoughts. They were built for the Imperial German Navy, and they were inspired from HMS Dreadnought, the very first of its kind in 1906. These ships were in commission from 1909 through 1919. So what do we need to know about the Nassau? Well, it's very similar, at least in turret placement, to the Kawachi. Actually, it's exactly similar. It has a hexagonal pattern, and it has 12 11-inch guns. Now, the South Carolina and the Kawachi at Tier 3 all took 12-inch guns, so these ones are 1 caliber less. However, I have a feeling that they're going to have a slightly increased rate of fire, and just looking at the German battleships in general, I think this is going to be a theme for them. German battleships during World War I generally had lower caliber armament than their adversaries, specifically the British, and later in the war, the Americans, and I guess this is going to be a thing for them. This is just, again, pure speculation, but it seems like that will be the case. It has a pretty good belt of 300 millimeters. Its turrets have 280 millimeters of armor on the face, so this thing is going to be slightly more armored and durable than a Kawachi will be, and I have a feeling that it will play very similarly. As for torpedo protection and AA, well, it's the first dreadnoughts that were made for the German Navy in World War I. They don't really have much of anything in those departments, to be honest with you. I think it'll be a good introduction to the German battleship line, kind of get you into the idea of how to brawl. At Tier 4, we have the Kaiser. Of the Kaiser-class battleships, they were a class of 5 that were built for Germany prior to World War I, and also they served in the Imperial German Navy throughout the war, especially so at the Battle of Jutland. These battleships were in commission from 1912 through 1919, and 5 were completed. So, the Kaiser, what's different about it? Well, here at Tier 4, it has 12-inch guns, which is pretty standard. The Wyoming, the Arkansas Beta, they have 12-inch guns. The Imperator Nikolai, it also has 12-inch guns, but the turret placement is extremely peculiar, even more so than the hexagonal. It has a super-firing pair of turrets in the rear, and 1 turret up front in front of the first funnel, and then it has 2 staggered wing turrets on the port and starboard side. So again, you cannot fire a full broadside in this ship, and you cannot utilize all of your guns. You can only fire up to 8 at one time. And that is the lowest broadside potential of any of the Tier 4 ships. The Isuzuchi can shoot 12 from the side, and the Nikolai, Wyoming, and Arkansas Beta can all shoot 12 12-inch guns. So while the caliber is the same as its adversaries, the number is not, so only 8 at a time. However, the caveat for this thing is some incredible belt armor, 350 millimeters. That's 14 inches on a Tier 4 battleship. This thing is going to be an absolute troll at point-blank range with its armor, and this thing will definitely be the best brawler out of any of the Tier 4 battleships. I think even more so than the Imperator Nikolai, and that thing is certainly heavily armored as well. I think the Kaiser is going to be used quite frequently by SEAL clubbers. Just because of that armor belt, you can get away with only shooting 8 of your 12-inch guns at a time. And again, I think that the rate of fire will be increased slightly due to the fact that it's only able to shoot 8 in a broadside, which again is going to be the lowest of any of the Tier 4 battleships. AA armament, very negligible. That's what you expect with these older ships. At Tier 5, we have the König, which stands for King. And they were a group of 4 battleships of the König class built, once again, for the Imperial German Navy on the eve of World War I. They were in commission from 1914 through 1919, and the König, along with all the others, saw extensive use at the Battle of Jutland. So what do you need to know about the Koenig class? Well, the battleship here looks a bit more like a normal modern design, at least for the time. All of its turrets are placed on the center line. You have 5 turrets with 2 guns apiece in each for a total of 10 12-inch guns. All the other battleships at Tier 5 carry 14-inch guns, all of the different variations of the Congo, the New York, and the Texas. So once again, I think this is going to be one of the first very unique German battleships in the tech tree, simply because the rate of fire, I really do think, will be significantly increased over those 14-inch guns to make it more competitive, simply because 12-inch guns at Tier 5 is actually pretty weak. Again, this was a German thing for their dreadnoughts. During World War I, they generally had lower caliber armaments, but they were more accurate and they had a faster rate of fire. However, you still retain that ridiculous 14 inches of belt armor, 350 millimeters. I mean, this thing is going to be the brawler of all brawlers. You certainly do not want to let this thing close the distance. Think of it as a New York, except you don't even want to get... you don't want to let it get even closer than a New York would. Those things are excellent at close range. I think these things will be even better, even though the caliber of the armament is certainly a lot less than 14 inches. AA, very poor. This is going to be a thing, I think, with the German battleships, even up through the next tier as well. World War I, AA armament really wasn't an important thing, so maybe they will have to create a historical hull for this thing just to give it some more anti-aircraft armament, because going up against a Ranger or a Hiryu would certainly spell immediate doom for a ship that has as little AA as it does on this one. Taking a look at the Tier 6 battleship, the Bayern. It was the Bayern class battleship. 4 planned, only 2 were completed. They were in commission from 1915 through 1919, and they again served in the Imperial German Navy and were the most powerful battleships that they completed. These battleships now finally have some really meaty armament. They have 8 15-inch guns arranged in the same turret layout as the Warspite, 2 super-firing pairs, 1 in the front and 1 at the stern. It also has that glorious belt armor that extends, once again, to 350 millimeters, and has a very heavily armored conning tower at 400 millimeters, and finally gets a decent bit of deck armor, 60 to 100 millimeters, although this thing will certainly be very susceptible to plunging fire. So how do I think the Bayern will fit in? Well, I think this will be one of the only German battleships that has a normal rate of fire, and what I mean by normal is I think that it'll probably be about the same as the Warspite, which, I mean, it's 15-inch guns. These things will be top of the tier in terms of caliber. The Fuso, the New Mexico, the new Premium Arizona only have 14-inch guns, while this and the Warspite have 15-inch. So I think that we'll have very good penetration. Obviously, it will do more damage, and I think it'll be a pretty good brawler as well. It seems like this will be the good German, what they're really good at, and I think even more so than the American ones, at least up to Tier 6. Once again, 350 millimeters of belt armor, even at Tier 6, will be fantastic. When you're angled in, you'll certainly be able to bounce those pesky 16-inch shells that you'll be meeting more frequently from the Tier 7 and 8. And once again, I think the ship will get some sort of ahistorical hull modification to give it some decent AA, because honestly, going up against, in the worst-case scenario, a Shikaku or a Lexington, you're going to get absolutely destroyed by their aircraft. Because, again, these things during World War I, obviously, they didn't make it to World War II because they were scrapped in 1919 at Scapa Flow by the British, so they never had a chance to be upgraded, of course. So I think there's going to be some sort of ahistorical hull to make up for that. Now we're going to get into some more interesting designs, and this one is probably the most interesting design of the lot. The Tier 7 Gneisenau. It was one of 2 Scharnhorst or Gneisenau class battleships, whichever way you prefer to say it. And also, this thing is considered a battlecruiser to some sources as well. However, it is a Tier 7 battleship here in game, and it is a very interesting ship indeed. It is armed with 3 turrets with 3 guns apiece with 11-inch guns. I wonder how this is going to work. However, the Gneisenau also has a very good armor belt. Once again, 350 millimeters, 14 inches, more heavily armored than the Tirpitz, and going with tradition, this thing is going to be a very tough nut to crack. Now, how do I think the Gneisenau will play? Well, in real life in 1942, there were talks of taking the 11-inch guns off and replacing them with 3 turrets with only 2 guns apiece. They're going to be the 15-inch guns that you find on the Tirpitz and the Bismarck. So I have a feeling that the rate of fire, if they do use the 11-inch guns, is going to be significantly more pronounced than, say, the Tier 5 would with the Koenig class. due to just the dispersion of the caliber. The Colorado and the Nagato, both at tier 7, have 16-inch guns. The Gneisenau, I'm going to guess, will have a reload somewhere around 20 to 22 seconds to make up for that. But I feel like that these guns will have an extremely good shell arc, a very fast shell speed. I think they're going to be very accurate. Again, this is speculation, but to make it competitive here at tier 7, these guns are going to have to perform in really good ways other than the damage. The damage is probably going to be somewhere around 8,000, just taking a look at 12-inch gun damage at tier 3, which is around 8,600, 8,700, so it'll probably be somewhere around 8,000. But I think that the reload on this thing, it'll be a very good cruiser killer. And I think even battleships as well, if they give you a broadside at shorter ranges, you're going to be able to get citadel after citadel after citadel. The AA armament on the Gneisenau is finally going to be up to snuff. It certainly won't be as good as an American battleship, and again, this certainly isn't the German thing with their AA, but I think it will be good enough to get by. And overall, if they do decide to keep the 11-inch guns, I think this thing will be an extremely, extremely unique playstyle, and I think a lot of people are going to like it. They also might possibly make, say, a turret upgrade where you can put the 15-inch guns on, where you lose the rate of fire and you lose some of the guns, but obviously they're 15 inches in caliber. Moving on to Tier 8, the mighty Bismarck, arguably the most famous battleship that has ever set the 7 seas. This is a pair of 2 battleships, the other being the Tier 8 Premium Tirpitz, which has been in the game for a while. They were built for the Kriegsmarine for Nazi Germany shortly before the outbreak of World War II. These ships were in commission from 1940 through 1944, and they were both destroyed during the war. Armament: 8 15-inch guns, exactly the same as the Tirpitz, and a belt armor of 320 to 330 millimeters, about 12.5 to 13 inches worth of armor. These things have the turtleback armor design, and they are extremely tough nuts to crack. In this case, I'm referring to the Tirpitz, so the Bismarck should be no different. Now, how do I think it's going to differ from the Tirpitz? Well, I can't find for sure or for certain if Wargaming is going to leave the Tirpitz as the only battleship amongst the Germans that gets torpedoes. I think that the Tirpitz is going to be, going to be its main thing. Like, that's it. It's the only battleship that gets torpedoes. As you can see here in the replay, I landed quite a few torpedoes on that enemy Tirpitz. But I think that that's going to be completely singular to the Tirpitz and the Tirpitz only. But to make up for it, maybe the Bismarck will get a little bit better anti-aircraft. Again, the AA certainly won't be as good as American AA, but it will be good enough to get by as long as you have cruiser support. I think the Bismarck will completely retain the same qualities as the Tirpitz, considering it is a sister ship to it. It'll be a very good brawler, very good armor with the turtleback design, and maybe they'll make the guns more accurate. I don't know. The Tirpitz does have a reputation for missing a lot of shots that it shouldn't. So now we get to probably the most interesting of the designs, the Tier 9 and the 10. At the Tier 9, we have what appears to be an H-39 design. Its name in game is the Friedrich der Große, or Frederick the Great. And at Tier 10, we have the Große Kurfürst, or Great Elector. Yes, Great Elector is what it's translated to. Now, these are the Tier 9 and 10. Battleships. Now, looking at the statistics online that I found, I highly think that the Tier 9 will be the H-39 design. It has 8 16-inch guns instead of the 15-inch. It has a plethora of secondaries and AA guns. It has pretty good armor. Sources that I found put it at around 300 to 320 millimeters. So I think this ship is going to be a very good brawler, but it'll finally have the same caliber armament as its contemporaries at Tier 9, the Iowa and the Izumo. They also have 16 inches of armor. As for the Tier 10, it appears to me that it will be the H-41 design. The H-41 design is 16.5-inch guns, 8 of them, and also it has very good armor along the Citadel. But another thing, and finally something that German battleships really don't have all the way up to Tier 10, is adequate deck protection. It finally will get a good enough deck to where bombs don't have a very good chance of going through. Now again, the Tier 9 and 10 battleships here that I'm showing you, these are the most probably unique, and also ones that we just really don't know much about. Wargaming really hasn't said anything. I'm, again, speculating it will be H-39 and H-41 designs. I'm going to put a link to Wikipedia down here in the bottom so you can take a look at what I have found. I think these ships will be incredibly good brawlers at the high tiers, because certainly an Iowa and an Izumo at Tier 9 are not necessarily the ships that you want to be getting into brawling range, and I think the Germans will fill that void at least at Tier 9, and then probably at Tier 10. I've heard a lot of talk on the forums about there needs to be a battleship in the game that will be able to at least challenge the Yamato's armor, and I think that maybe the H-41 will fit that mold. So there you have it, folks. There's the German battleships. Again, pure speculation here, just taking a guess, but I do have some numbers to back it up, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. Ended up having a monster game in the Tirpitz, 197,000 damage. But at the end of the day, this video was more about the German battleships that are coming up, and I really do think that they will be some impressive ships. This is the Sneaky Snake for Brothers in Arms World of Warships. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll catch you next time.